All right, well then let's do it. I'm going to try to share my screen if I can share screen and competition manager. All right, you should all be seeing a competition manager. And so I should mention that our judges this month are Brian Nixon, Gary Hook, and Carol Schiraldi. I'm, as always, deeply indebted to the three of them for contributing their time, knowledge, and effort. It's always important for us to have people that are willing to do this. It certainly makes it a lot more interesting than just listening to me. Let's show some images. So we're going to go into the basic class now. We have 17 images this month in the basic group. And we'll go through them and close that. And here we go.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, that's our 17 images for this evening. Now we'll have our judges critique. So we'll go through them again with some comments. Note that the judges are going to comment on 3 images each. So there will be a total of 9 images that are commented on. And the reason for them choosing those may be because they were excellent pictures, maybe because they had something that could be improved, or maybe just something that just really grabbed their attention. So it doesn't mean that a picture was great or terrible because that is being commented on. So we'll do that again. The first image is Sandstorm at Death Valley. And let me get
mine, I believe.
Comment list. That's Brian's going to comment on that.
Yeah.
Oops. First, get it off of automatic mode. All right.
But first off, I'm surprised. I shouldn't say surprised. This is a very impressive image to be in the basic or beginner category. I would expect to see something like this in advanced, or sorry, intermediate. Love the colors here. The earth tones are amazing. How they flow from the grays down to the browns. The cloud detail and contrast is just superbly dramatic. I mean, everything about this is a very cinematic shot. You'd see this in a CinemaScope Western. Upon closer look at it, I know this is a dust storm, but for whatever reason, and this just might be what my eye is doing, it just looks very soft around the mountains, almost like it was airbrushed. That's really, and I wouldn't even call that a critique. It's just something I'm picking up right now. But overall, I mean, this is a very incredible image. I mean, whoever this photographer is, he's getting really close to, or sorry, pronouns. They are getting really close to moving up a level if they continue with work like this. Good job.
Okay. Thanks.
Hey, Mark, can you take care of the cursor, please?
Well, I had to leave it there for one. It'll show up again too. Okay, sorry about that. Next is down the home stretch, and Gary.
So can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I'm trying the new microphone tonight, so we'll see what happens. So before I say anything about this image, I want to preface my remarks by pointing out that I'm going to start a podcast called Gary Says Really, Really Mean Things, because I need to school Josh on how to be unkind. So I am joking, of course, but I spent a lot of time this time working through the images in multiple steps, and decided to choose my three in each category based on what I thought would be helpful. And I want to make sure that sometimes I don't say things very well, and so I apologize if I come across as unkind. I don't mean to, but I want to make sure that the focus is really on the image and how to what I see in the image. It has nothing to do with the photographer, of course, and so it's really all about trying to raise the bar. So on that note, so what I like about this image, I love the colors. I think the colors are honest and vibrant. I just tremendous. I find greens to be particularly challenging myself. Sometimes I get too carried away, but I think the grass is honest, and I love the caps and the jerseys and the horse blankets. Actually, one blue one there on the left. How I think this could be improved. I chose this because it brings up a number of issues. First of all, this is a panning shot. It looks like it's a panning shot to me. So we have out of focus areas on the bottom and in the background. And what I see, unless I'm mistaken, what I see is that the horse on the right appears to be the most in focus or the sharpest, but none of them are really super crisp. Everything's just a tiny bit, everything seems to have a little bit tiny motion blur. So I would suggest maybe a faster shutter speed on this would have been helpful. I don't know that even a panning would have been necessary on this. I think you could have captured the action without panning very well at a 2,000th of a second, maybe a 2,500th. I've done a little bit of shot of horses, so I know they do move fast, but I think there's some latitude here in the settings. In particular, I think that the shot needs space on the right. because the horses are coming in from the left. I think there needs to be some room on the right, some margin. And it bothers me that the horse's tail is, the front horse's tail is cropped on the left. I realize there's another horse back there and he's not going to be in the shot, but that tail just bothers me. So, you know, action shot wise, great thing off the ground. I love the dirt being picked up. Lots of really good stuff here. You know, I just would suggest trying to see things or approach things maybe slightly differently from an action perspective and seeing what you get.
I thought it was interesting. This is one of those pictures where you have two horses that have all four hooves on in the air.
I know. Racing down the track.
Gary, we came up with new ideas for your show name. Look in the chat.
Oh, I'm going with that last one.
Okay, next is overpass curves, study number 2. Friendship. Venetian ice swirl. Morning hunt.
This one was me. I was going to critique this one.
Yep.
I'm Carol, if anyone doesn't know me. Hi, everybody. One thing I like to do, and I'll try to keep this really short, is I try to give an overall critique of everything to mention a pattern at my first critique. So I noticed something this month that, because I've been a judge before, I guess now for a couple of years, although I don't judge, I try not to judge too often and give different folks chances and everything. And I'm also an art photographer, so my critiques are a little different. They run different, so bear with me. Sometimes they're helpful, sometimes they're not. Take what you will and leave the rest. But one thing I've noticed, one trend I've noticed is that we're seeing a lot more experimental work. And I think that's a great thing. When I first started critiquing and judging, almost all the shots were the same subject. And maybe it was because everyone's going out together and shooting the same thing the same way. But we're seeing a lot more experimentation, a lot of people taking risks, a lot of people trying new things. And I think that's a great thing. So that's really, it's a testament to the group that folks are really not afraid to get out there and try new stuff. Maybe it's influence from Josh and other photographers in the group that are more experimental. Whatever's happening, I think that's great. We're seeing more variety, which I think is really good. And I think we're seeing a lot of photographers who are at the point in their trajectory as an artist, and photography is art, where they're starting to do what I call find your voice, right? You're getting your camera down, you're getting things down, but you're really maybe getting to the point where you're finding your voice as a photographer, as an artist. Like, what do you want to say with your camera? It's not just about your aperture, your shutter speed, all of that stuff, right? It's more about, what am I going to do? What am I saying with my camera? What's the big picture? Excuse the pun, right? So I think that's really interesting to watch. And it's going to change some of the critiques that I give in the future, because I think people are, I mean, we always get new people, we have different trajectories and whatnot, but we are starting to see a lot of people, even the beginner and intermediate groups, really get to that point where they're starting to find their voice as a photographer. So, you know, interesting developments, and I just thought I would point that out. So this one, I wanted to say something about this. I sell my work sometimes on Minted, and this is one of the images that they would love. They love sort of that negative space. And by that, I mean, there's a lot of, like in the painter's world, there's the foreground and the background of a painting, right? And this image has a lot of background, right? Now, some photographers would say, crop in and get tight, right? But in a way, the subject of this image is that negative space. It's really about the space and the lone bird and the shape of the bird and the lines and the trees, right? So I'm not going to suggest to crop where some photographers might, because I think this might be that experimental vision that you're going for. In photography, especially, sometimes, you know, I'm a fine art photographer, so my critiques go towards hanging something on a wall. Not everybody does that. Some people look for magazines or journalism, or they put text on photographs. Photographs with negative space make for very good magazine articles because they can overwrite the text onto them. So that's something to think about. This could be an image that maybe, you know, you could market to that market, that segment. And so I don't want to impose my view on you and say, well, you know, I would crop in. You could crop in, but, you know, if you also wanted to sell this in the magazine space, you would get that text and it would work. So that's something to think about if you do have negative space. If you have a vertical image with a lot of negative space, that's a magazine cover, right? So it's a different market than framing and hang on a wall. It's just something to think about. So getting into this image, this is an interesting silhouette. I mentioned it has the shape of the bird, the lone bird standing out, and the lines in the trees. The branches, I think, are really strong. This time of year, especially, we have the bare branches, and they make for beautiful lines. It is a great artistic element. It's got, you know, lines and shapes and that beautiful silhouette. It's really, the silhouette is a great thing about photography. The camera makes great silhouettes, and it's really interesting to play with the silhouette as an artist. When you work in the silhouette, it is all about the line and the shape, and this image has interesting lines and shapes in it. It really does have both, and the shapes and lines are really prominent in the image. To improve it, I would suggest the branches on the right are soft focus to me. And I think that if you are going to go silhouette, and again, this maybe is my opinion, but I would look for everything to be really tack sharp, because you want those lines to be really sharp. You want the quality of line. If you're doing a painting or a photograph, you want those lines to be really tack sharp, to really draw the attention to them and to make them a graphical element and not sort of a softer. So that's how I would improve this. So I might, if this were my image, I might make a square and eliminate those out of focus branches, or I would try to reshoot it and get those branches really sharp, tack sharp, so that when you do have that silhouette, you have those great lines and it's crisp and in focus. But overall, I think this image worked for me because I think it's fun. You're experimenting. I love the silhouette. I love bringing the silhouette to the camera. And I'll stop talking now. I think I've said enough, but thanks, and good job on the photo.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, next is Spark of Green. COVID Mona Lisa. Gary.
Yeah, I'm up again. So this brings up something for me that I don't know if a lot of people think about this, but when you're shooting an image, and I learned this early on when I first started with photography. I ran into a fine art photographer out of Scotland, and I learned that one of the things you have to shoot for is an emotional connection with your viewer. And that's not going to apply to everybody, of course. I'm not saying that it has to be universal, but I'm saying that you're looking, if you're sharing your photography and you want other people to appreciate it, you're trying to find that emotional connection with them, something that they can latch onto, that resonates with them. And in that particular case, when you're successful at that with some people, those are your audience. That's great, at least for that image, and that's a good thing. So in this particular case, this one did not make an emotional connection with me, and let me explain why. The most off-putting thing here for me is the mask. I am the kind of person that doesn't find those sorts of masks particularly humorous or engaging. I find them they're like clowns for me. They're somewhat disturbing, even if they might be funny for some. So it's a personal thing. I fully admit that. It's just not me. So I'm not a big fan of that mask. The image itself, though, let's talk about that. I love how sharp this image is. It is crispy, crispy, crispy where it needs to be. The hair is very detailed. The eyes are bright. The glasses are bright. I love the color is honest and, again, very vibrant, very, very good. I really, really appreciate that. What I find a little weird is the placement of her face and head in the frame. I think they're a little bit too far to the right. And she's looking, of course, to her left, our right, and looking towards the outside of the frame. So that's generally considered a difficult thing to pull off in even the best situations. And here I'm not sure it's very successful, at least not for me. The other thing that bothers me is that bench on the left side. I keep looking at the name tag, the plaque, and that is just an element in the image that is distracting for me. I don't think a square crop is helpful in this case. I would have preferred a portrait crop focused on her as opposed to seeing things on the side that are irrelevant to the image. personal preference again for me. Other people might find this to be perfectly okay the way it's cropped. It's just that I don't know that I find it successful, and that's really for me what it's all about. So even though I don't have an emotional connection to this image, I can my goal is to evaluate it on whether I think it's successful, and I think there are some things that are causing it to fall short of success. I would like to have seen her eyes brightened a little bit. There's obviously catch lights there, and I think that would have added some life to the image as well. The light was obviously fairly flat that day, or not fairly flat, fairly diffuse that day, and I think that we could have brightened up her eyes a little bit just to bring a little bit of life to it. But other than that, I think that's about all I have to share from my perspective on this one.
Okay. This one's called Open to Possibilities. Carol, do you have some possibilities for this?
Yes, I do. This one's one of mine. Hang on, let me find my notes. So this one is obviously a macro flower shot. There's a great focus in the center on this image. The colors are really good. It's the flower is a nice selection. It's a great flower. It's obviously got a great shape. I think it's a nice crop. It's tight, which is good. It can be really difficult to do macro shots. If you're a beginner, especially, it can be really, really difficult to do macro shots because as you get into the macro space, the depth of field really disappears and gets very tight, and it's very hard to work in the smaller confined space. It's also really hard to deal with the light and the exposure as you get down in close to things, right? And I think this image in a way suffers from some of that, but it's a good attempt. The depth of field is very shallow, and you have good focus on the center of the flower here, which is good. But in general, I do a lot of macro flower shots myself, and I try to put the out of focus stuff in the back. Now that's not a hard and fast rule. Rules are meant to be broken, but generally speaking, I like the front of the image to be in focus and the focus to fall off in the back. And this is kind of the reverse of that, right? The focus is a little bit past where I would want it, I guess I would look for it to be. That's just maybe my preference, but that's one suggestion I would make for improving it, right? But given that this is the beginner category, especially, I think this is a great attempt because you really got the center of the flower in focus, and there's a lot you've done right. Now, having said that, I also think it's a little bit bright, the light is a little bit harsh. When you get into doing the flower macro, I think you really need like the multiple light sources and really to watch your exposures because things can go bright really quickly and they can get out of hand. And then also that focus really drops off and changes on you very, very quickly. So this is an area, if you like working with macros, like working with the macro focus and the tight compositions, you really have to experiment and play. I think the photographer here has done some things very right, and I think you're on a good path. I just wish you could continue more and again, maybe work with the lighting a little bit, work with reflectors, soften that lighting up a little, get a nice more even tone, and then really play with the focus where you're going in and out of the focus. If you're doing like a selective focus, what you're putting, what's in focus and what's out of focus. And it can be very hard to do that in the macro space. I think most people will agree. Even if you're an advanced photographer, you can mess that up really easily. So you've done a good job here. I wish you could keep playing with it and continuing down the path. And those are just my recommendations for what I would do here.
Okay. Just no.
This one's mine, I believe.
Black and white, it must be yours.
See what you did there. I really like this image, not just because it's in black and white. I like candid shots. I'm assuming this was during Snowpocalypse or right before Snowpocalypse got to be Miserable Apocalypse. Because clearly the subject is smiling. You can't really see her smile or his smile. And that's the first thing I'm going to address. It's a candid shot. I understand that candids are by definition surprise shots. The subject is usually not expecting their picture to be taken. However, I wish we could see the subject's face a little bit more. just to get an idea of the emotion. I mean, there's a lot to be assumed here that they're smiling. They could be very angry, but I mean, just the positioning, just maybe, get in the line of fire a little bit and then take the picture, but that's just, it's a candid shot. It was a spur of the moment thing. It was spontaneous. The framing's really good. I like the wide shot. I like the shutter speed being where it is, to where you can actually see the individual particles of snow as it explodes all over their face, all over everywhere, basically. The one thing I would suggest is it is a very hot photo. I mean, the highlights are really, really hot, and you lose a lot of the photo that way. If they had taken it, shooting in snow, or shooting in, I mean, not just say snow, let's just say you're shooting in an area that is a very, there's not very many dark surfaces. It's all light, like say limestone or white concrete or something to that effect. Is really hard to set your shutters and your f-stops the way you want them unless you have experience. You naturally go for wanting it to be bright so you could see everything, but then you have this issue come up where everything is so bright it's almost overwhelming. If they had gone down a little bit, a few stops, you still would have seen the snow. You would have seen a little bit more of the sky. It would have brought in a little bit more texture to the photo. But great capture. I mean, really spontaneous. It was a really fun shot. Good job.
Next, we have Gin Flowers and Gary.
Okay. I will preface my remarks by saying I am not a cat person. I'll just leave that there. Again, going back to what I said a moment ago, emotional connection. And so not being a cat person, I like animals. I like everybody else's animals. I don't own any myself, but I like everyone else's animals. But I'm not, I'm not in the, ooh, a kitty camp necessarily. In this particular case, in this particular image rather, I love the colors of the flowers. The oranges and yellows and reds are just fabulous and vibrant and honest. I think they're great. In general, I like the composition of the flowers too. We've got the one up front, we've got the one just to the upper left, and then another one above, and like that. So it's quite nice. I initially thought that this was a composite in post. I'm not entirely sure about that. I think it's probably an in-camera double exposure now after having looked at it, because I do see evidence of fur here and there throughout the flowers around the face. I'm not entirely sure either way, but that's what I'm leaning towards. What I don't understand is the intent of this image. If it was intended to maybe clarify something about the cat, I'm not understanding it. And again, it's me. It's me. I'm not making a universal proclamation here. It is me, okay, but I'm not getting it. And so I have to look at the image as what it is. And I don't quite get the use of the face on the flower. It's not quite centered. The nose is not quite in the middle of the center of the flower. You've got the eyes there. The face doesn't even look in focus to me. There may be some focus blur, or there may be some motion blur. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm not really clear on what it is. And unfortunately for me, the title doesn't illuminate the intent here for me either. When I hear gin, I think, are we talking about an alcoholic beverage, or are we talking about a card game? I'm not real clear. So there are a lot of elements here that just didn't come across as successful for me. for those reasons. So, I like the colors, but past that, I'm kind of going, I'm not getting it. So personal.
Okay. Brown pelicans sunning. Reflection in a puddle. Bird in a stick. Follow me. Carol.
This one was, yeah, this one was mine. Wait, okay, so I always get asked from the bird photographers in the group if I like birds, yes or no. And I always say, I'm a fine art photographer, so some bird images I like, some I don't. I try to be honest. For me, this was a very strong image. There's something in here in this image that worked really well for me. There's a couple things. One thing is there's what we call really good separation for me. The bird is not obscuring the branch and the branch is not obscuring the bird. The shapes are all very well defined in this image, and that for me makes a very strong image. There's repetition of shapes and there's repetition of patterns. If you look, these are both things that can take an image from being good to being really captivating in my mind. When you think about an image, you get a certain amount of real estate, right? And you want to keep the eye in the frame of the image. And if you have repetition of shapes and patterns and good separation, you're going to keep the viewer's eye in the image. They're not going to just take a glance and turn away. They're going to really look at the image. It's going to draw them in. It makes it really captivating. So that makes it a much stronger image. A lot of times the whole can be larger than the sum of the parts, if that makes sense, right? Because you've really drawn us in. In this image also, the end of the branch almost looks like a face, like another bird. And so it mirrors the shape of the bird, and the texture of the branch and the bird's feathers really match also. So that, again, it keeps my eye in the image. There's also sort of an eye-shaped, I don't know what you call it, knot in the wood that, again, it looks like another eye. It looks organic. It really keeps my eye in the frame. The sky, someone once told me, the sky is either working for you or it's working against you, right? And in this image, it's working here, I think, very well. It's giving you a nice soft background. There's some clouds, there's some definition, but it's not overbearing and overpowering. The pops on the yellow of the birds really also work as well. The yellow and the brown stand out against that blue sky. It's a limited color palette. It's soft light. There's great separation and great texture. And those are all things that worked for me. I thought this was one of the stronger images I've seen from this group. And, I really liked it. I will preface that by saying I'm a fine art photographer. I approach things differently. Maybe a bird photographer will come along and say, no, you have to have 3 birds and a, fruit fly. Otherwise, you get a 0. I can't speak to that. I just give you my experience as a painterly type photographer, but that's what I see in the image, and I really like this image. I thought it was good job.
Okay, thanks. And we have Icy Maple Bud.
This one's mine.
Okay.
Hey, look, it's a color one, and I chose it. I'm going against character. Crazy time. It's April Fool's. I love how ice works on certain objects, on all objects. I like how it almost preserves it and sharpens it up. Like when you say, it's just really cool when you see ice engulfing an entire like branch or, thin branches, and then sunlight catches it and almost makes it glow. In a way, it kind of preserves it, but it's really potentially killing the branch or the plant life or whatever it's freezing. It just looks really cool. We don't get that a lot in Texas. This was a really cool shot. The colors are vibrant, really well done. I like how vibrant the reds are. The crop is a little strange to me. I don't understand why they went with a 4:3 crop versus a more wider. You have the distracting elements in the bottom right corner that are sort of in the frame, but also out of the frame. But I mean, going back to the focus of the image, the focus is a little bit off for me. In my eye is drawn to the larger grouping of the flowers, but they're slightly out of focus, and the smaller group of the flowers are in focus, and it kind of takes me out of the photo in a way. If the focus was shifted to the left a little bit to the bigger grouping, it should be a much stronger image. But I mean, great first attempt. I'm glad to see that a lot of people went out and risked their extremities to get really cool and interesting photographs that we normally would not get a chance to shoot in Texas, especially in Austin. But good job.
Okay. Next and last in this group is bridge. All right. So we'll see what the judges picked. Judges selections. Show. Okay, so in this class we have 2 honorable mentions. And the first honorable mention is Bird in a Stick by Sabrina Lunsford. That's we'll go back to that. That's a really interesting and timely shot. Congratulations on being in the right place at the right time. Next honorable mention is Reflection in a Puddle by Donna Smith. Third place, Jerry Berman. Jumps into the pool and starts winning right away. Congratulations.
This is a really cool shot, Jerry.
Thank you.
And this is second place is Friendship from Sabrina Lunsford. A really, really cool image. I just love everything about it. And first place, Sandstorm at Death Valley, Louis Abulafia. Great shot. Great, and it's just well done. It's dramatic and certainly has a lot of impact. Louis, is Louis here tonight?
I don't see him in the chat.
No, I don't see him either. Okay. All right. Well, we also want to look at the People's Choice. So we have 3 places. And the first, let's see, for bronze goes to Donna Smith for Reflection in a Puddle. Gorgeous color, super sharp. Good composition too. Sabrina Lunsford gets silver medal for Friendship. And people agree with the judges. Again, gold medal goes to Louis Abulafia for just a tremendous shot. Okay, I'm going to go on to the intermediate class. We have 25 images here. So we'll move through them. Let's see. I'm going to move through these just a little quicker. because we'll get back to them. You guys are getting some back noise here, aren't you? Hang on one second. Okay, let's hear some commentary from the judges. Let's see where we are here. Okay. That one was, let me go back. That was Dorothy, where are you? Oh, I just got it. All right. Next is intensity. Brian.
Was this one of mine? I don't know.
No, am I looking at the, nope. Yeah, you're not commenting. I'm sorry, you just judged it. Okay.
That sounds so fun, like
Yeah.
final. You just judged it.
Yeah. It's not what, didn't mean to say it quite like that. Austin Nightlights. Gary, you're on for this one.
All righty. Lens zoom, using lens zoom approach, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but this is what it looks like to me. I'm not sure where we are, downtown, probably on one of the bridges, possibly Congress Avenue. I like that there's, bright lights in it. What I'm missing again is an intent. It's Austin. Honestly, I can't tell that it's Austin. I know that when I know that it's Austin, I can place it pretty well, but I mean, the Al building is missing, you know, no Capitol building, things like, you know, the more iconic landmarks. So I don't really know that it's Austin. I'm not really understanding what I'm supposed to be looking at, though. There's a lot here that is very similar throughout the frame. It's texture, I get that. But I don't land on anything other than the red sign over on the left, which I don't know that I want my eye drawn in an image to something over on the left edge or on an edge, basically, where I might end up just kind of falling out of the frame. I'm not sure that I think it was helpful to include the water. I clearly a long exposure in order to do this, but I don't know that the lower good 25% of the image is particularly helpful. It's a lot of dark and doesn't really tell me much more about anything than the lights do. So I'm not really understanding the intent of that. From a technical perspective, trying to do a zoom lens, a lens zoom long exposure is difficult. I've failed many times myself. In this particular case, the lens wasn't particularly smooth because the lines are kind of wavy. So it's one of those things that you want to kind of practice at with that tripod to improve. But I think having a more clear intent in what is being portrayed might help the viewer connect with the image, at least this viewer. I can't speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself. But you know, good processing, brightness, contrast, I like all that. So definitely some good technical merits here.
Okay, thanks. Crypto grinder. Take my picture. Brian, I think this is yours.
This is mine. This one is mine. I mean, I judged it and I'm going to verbally talk about it. And look, again, it's in color. Take my picture. Why? Let's get really deep here. Why do we want to take, why does he want us to take his picture? I don't know. And that's where my critique is going. I'm going to start with the framing. I don't know where we're supposed to focus. That crop is right in the middle of everything. It's either not wide enough so we get the full body, or it's not close enough so we could actually see his smile, which is obviously where we want to be focusing, is his facial expression. He looks like he's just a really, you know, fun guy to be around. And that being said, you know, you want to back up and see his whole image, or if you want to get closer and see his face, like, you know, just talking about like a little bit higher than the waist up, and it would have been, you know, it would have made the image a little bit more stronger. I'm assuming there's a few things I'd assume. I would assume this might have been a smartphone camera. The background looks a little bit too well out of focus, like they used some sort of a filter, and it didn't really need to. I don't think, I mean, he's prominently lit enough by the sun to where you wouldn't have lost him in the background. And it gives it a sort of unnatural look to the photo. As far as shooting in natural light, I mean, everything is in focus. His expressions in focus. He, aside from the brim shadowing his forehead, you can see his eyes, you can see his smile. I mean, it's a fun image. It's just sort of in the middle ground, if that makes sense. But it was a fun image.
Okay. Still. Bee on a fire wheel. It's macro month, I guess. We got a swallowtail on a basket flower. I'm taking up a collection. Yellow flower and visitor. I think everybody was happy to get outside finally. Spider hangout. Pollen is sticky. Enigmatic salesman. Carol.
This was me, yeah. Hang on, let me pull my notes out. Give me 1 second, sorry. So this to me was a really great street style portrait. To me, because I'm an artist more than a photographer even, I deal a lot in perspective, right? The perspective on the face is really very strong in this image to me. It's really, really very strong. It's a straight on portrait with the subject having a natural tilt of the head, right? Meaning many people, when they are relaxed, they tilt their head slightly. And that makes the subject look very relaxed and not like a posed image. This image doesn't look like you said to someone, hey, can I take your picture? Oh, turn this way, turn that way. It looks almost like you shot him, you know, in a very relaxed way. And he's not a professional model or that sort of thing, but it's just a very natural portrait. I think that also the relaxed shoulders and the subject really looks comfortable before the camera. And those are all things that if you don't do portraits a lot, you maybe don't know to even look for that. So good job on that. He really doesn't look posed or forced, and the light is very nice on him. I thought the flames on his shirt mirror the colors in the glow. He's wearing a unique cap, and he has an interesting Fu Manchu or goatee. I'm really not good with facial hair, but that sort of beard-ish thing. It's really interesting, right? It sort of looks almost like the flames on his shirt. There's a lot of repeated patterns and textures and colors and shapes in this image. And again, that as a photographer, it's not always obvious, but the photographer in this image has done a lot of things really well and really right. A lot of times photography shares a lot of language with hunting. And it's because we really pick subjects out of the background, right? When you hunt, you go to the woods and you don't expect the deer to just line up, right? You got to go look for them, right? Or the food to line up, so to speak. With portraiture, with street portraiture especially, it's the same way, right? You've got to go find interesting people, and you may meet 1,000 duds before you find someone who's really unique and will make a good portrait. And I think the photographer was very successful in this image. This person is really unique. You want to know the story. You want to know, there's a narrative behind this image, and you want to know that story. You want to know this person. And that, I think, makes a very strong, compelling portrait, especially combined with that perspective on the face and the relaxed tilt of the head. Those are all elements that make this portrait very strong for me. Having said all of that, for improvement, I would really suggest cropping it from the top, even making it a square image. I think the top part of the frame is just, we've got this great portrait grounded at the bottom. And I just want to see, just right in on that wonderful portrait. But overall, I thought this was a great job. I thought there were some really strong elements, and the photographer made some really great choices in this image. So great portrait, well done.
Okay, thanks, Carol. Times Square Psychedelia. Engine 20. Gary.
Alrighty. I like, so what I saw here, and again, I went through several phases in judging this month, trying to look at the images, think about them, come back to them later, think about them, sort them, come back to them, think about them, sort them, rate them, and things still got moved around quite a bit. This particular one, I struggle with quite a bit. The helmet is bright and clear and crisp. There's a lot of motion blur elsewhere, and the motion blur bothers me because from what I can tell, his mask and face are not in focus, and that's what I want to be in focus, not his helmet. The crop is also awkward because of his knees. Honestly, it's just not. It's not what we typically do. We don't crop at joints when we're doing images, period, if we can possibly help it. And I understand that we may not be able to help it here, but for me, it's distracting. I'm not particularly a big fan of that. My biggest confusion, my greatest confusion, stems from I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Again, it's clear that he's coming out of a house. I'm assuming it's a house. It looks like there's a doorbell on the left. And there has been a fire, was just a fire, is a fire? I don't know. I would suggest in this particular case that context would be helpful in this image. Back up and show me more about the devastation that he's dealing with. That's what I want. That's what I want to know about. You take a picture of a person, the question is, tell me about this person. But in this case, I don't think that's the story. I feel like the story is where this person is and what this person's doing, and I don't have enough context to understand that. That's what I'm looking for here. The flashlight on his uniform is very distracting for me. I don't know what one could do to mitigate that. It is what it is. So I don't know if there's a lot that could be done. But you know, my eyes keep coming back to that helmet and that label, and I'm not really sure that's what I'm supposed to be looking at in this image. So for me, that makes it less successful. I think that was about, you know, I'd like the door frame straightened too, but that's just a personal problem. It's verticals. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Chasing the light. Carol.
Yeah, this was me. I really like this image. I thought it's fun, it's funky, it's very unique, it's very creative. It doesn't look like all the other kids at school. I'm really glad to see folks branching out and doing stuff that looks kind of different. You know, it's bold. There's a very strong center of interest. When you do abstract work, especially, it can be really difficult to get a center of interest, right? You know, a subject in essence in the frame, right? That really draws your eye in. And this image does have a bold center of interest, has a strong center of interest. It has really bright saturated color. The yellow really pops. The gradient in the sky for me works really well here. The red line going right into the sort of the dark corner in the right, it fills in that corner nicely. To me, this really pushes the medium. You know, it doesn't look like a straight photograph maybe. So, but I like that. I mean, you know, I paint and draw and take photos and put them all together. So I'm not limited by, you know, I'm a fine art photographer. I'm not limited by reality even, right? So that doesn't bother me. Some other people may be purists and say, no, you know, you have to, you know, what have you. I'm just giving you my opinion. I thought this was a really fun image. I thought the format, the choice of, you know, the horizontal worked really well. I think the shapes are very well defined. Again, this is like a nice, the sky is really interesting. The light and the quality of the light in the sky. It's got warm, it's dark where it's supposed to be dark. I thought for this image, the photographer just dared to be a little different, and it works for me. Some people may not like it. When you're different, that's what happens, right? You either loved or hated. Oh well. The one thing I would change is maybe there's a little white spot in the kind of center where the sort of the two shapes come together. and I might spot that out because I think it's a bit distracting. I realize it's probably a star or something in the night sky, but I just thought that one little dot just kind of takes a little bit away from the image. But overall, I'm really glad to see folks making images like this. It doesn't look like, you know, all the stuff we've seen, right? So it's very creative, and photography is supposed to be creative art form, right? So have fun with it, play, get creative, and you know, kudos for being brave and giving us something different. So well done.
Okay. Chillin'. Ladies, look at me. COVID rage.
Where's his mask?
Yeah, right. It's one of those protesters.
Oh, he doesn't believe in it. Okay.
Ready for the evening. Ryan.
Yes, this one's mine. I'm going back to form. Hey, it's black and white. Yes, it's black and white. I really enjoyed this black and white. Has a very cool vintage look to it. 1920s, I would assume, is the aesthetic they were going for with her outfit. I like that she's not looking at the camera. You could her features are very well defined. She has they're very in focus. The blacks aren't too dark. The whites aren't too like eye popping and bright. I'm gonna preface the rest of this critique with something that I will never judge a photograph or an image on what they could or could not take out of the image in post, meaning what they could digitally erase. I don't personally believe in that. I believe in if that object or whatever made it in the photo and you couldn't crop it out or whatever, personally, I just leave those in because I mean, it was in the image. It was in my camera's viewfinder. It's there. I mean, I just don't like erasing things just to clean up an image if it's, you know, it's just a personal thing. That being said, if they had, I'm assuming there's at least one external lighting the model, and the way that they had it positioned and the way that the camera was positioned, it caught the light caught the top of the settee or the couch and threw a drop shadow on the wall, and it's just a little distracting. It hurts the image a little bit, but it's nothing that a repositioning of the camera couldn't fix. If they just moved slightly to the left, it was possible that shadow could have been hidden behind her shoulder. You see it again a little bit at the bottom of the frame, but bottom right of the frame, but it's not as prevalent as right by her shoulder. And because it's right by her shoulder and the focus is her, it becomes a distracting element. On black and white images, on a lot of my images, I lean towards doing vignetting also. And that being said, they went a little bit too, they were too exuberant on the light vignetting. I'm not saying it's not warranted. It adds to the effect of it being a vintage photo, but back it off a little bit. That way it's not overpowering the image and you're starting to see unnecessary haze around some of the detail of the actual set. Photos like this, it's not just about the model, it's about the production design that you're bringing to it. You want to bring the photographer into a scene and evoke a certain feeling to it. It's like a movie. And if you're taking the time to set up a scene with props and effects and couches and costumes and whatever, you want to avoid taking out those details. And the vignetting on the bottom kind of does that a little bit. It's a little distracting. But all that being said, it's a solid it's a solid black and white portrait. I like it. Very good.
Okay. Next is antlers. Gary?
Sure. Love the detail. You know, taking shots of dead things is always fun. I do plenty of that myself. I love the detail. I like the colors on the top portion of the branches, limbs, trunk. I'm not sure what the right term is here. So interesting light, which may not have been, it looks a golden hour-ish, you know, pretty late, pretty early in the day. So that's cool. So I think that works really, really well. But and not to negate everything I've said before, because it's true. I'm saying, however, I also have this to say. I get the title. I get antlers. Like, okay, you know, you know, typically I think of antlers like deer antlers and elk antlers, not necessarily moose antlers. Those are kind of weird, but I got the title. And so what that does is that draws me into the upper half of the image. That basically keeps me at that crotch and up in this image. And therein lies, I think, my biggest problem, or my concern with success here. That means basically the lower 50% of this image is not germane to the intent. If the title portrays the intent, you've got a lot of space in this image that doesn't support the idea that I believe, based on the title, that you're trying to portray or trying to communicate. And so that is I think problematic and falls short of successful. I think you could crop it. I think you could crop it quite a bit and maybe turn it into a square image, maybe only leaving part of the bottom. If there was an image or if there are shapes here that said antlers to you, to the maker, I'm talking, that if there are shapes here that say antlers, then work the scene to find a way to get that communicated as clearly and as crisply as possible, zooming in, changing your position, whatever, so that everything is very, very clear, as opposed to, well, I think this is what you're doing. You want to make sure that the goal of creating an image is to communicate to your user your intent. You want them to feel what you're feeling. You want them to understand what you're saying. You're trying to get something across to them. And so I think there's some room here to improve on achieving that goal. From a technical perspective, I will say that the extraneous branches poking in from the upper right should be gone. They are distracting. They're hanging out there and they don't add anything to the image. So I would edit those out. I would easily edit those out, me personally, without a whole lot of hesitation. But again, I think finding this is really interesting, really cool idea. Your light was your friend, and I think that's great. It's just work the scene to accomplish your goal in a clear and unequivocal way.
Cool. Got flame. King's crown.
This one's mine.
Yeah.
This was hands down my favorite image of this class. I am a big fan of blues and purples, contrary to popular belief. Especially very vibrant blues and purples. They complement each other. And it's just a kind of a cool electric feel. And that's what this photo feels like. It's like a cool electricity. Yes, I shoot a lot in black and white, and I shoot very little in color. And here's the reason why. And this prefaces a critique of this is I shoot in black and white because I just like the way it looks. And unless and I like the way it looks, and I like the story it tells, and it makes you focus more on the details of what you're capturing. And but that's, I mean, me, I shoot a lot of street and live music and just things where you want to see those things. You don't want to be distracted by colors, and colors can be distracting. They can take away from the theme of your photo or what you're trying to show the viewer. And so my theory, my mantra or whatever when it comes to color is, or when it comes to black and white versus color is, do the colors out of the photo. And that's when I'll choose to shoot in color. Like, this looks awesome in color. I can make these colors work with me and still tell the story that I'm looking for. And sometimes they're muted, sometimes they're vibrant. I go all over the place, but I do shoot a lot in black and white. That being said, the colors here are a necessity to this photo working. If not, you have a very detailed black and white shot of a water drop in oil or water, in a fluid drop in fluid. It would still work and it would still be a cool photo, but I mean, I could see this hanging on a wall. The crown, the halo of the splash is in great sharp focus. Even the reflection it's not as sharp, but it's still sharp enough to be like, it makes the image work. And even the dots, the little splashes along up in the upper frame are cool, and they also work. They give you an option. I mean, it's messy, but it adds to the photo. The one thing that doesn't necessarily add to the photo are the tertiary dots that are hitting the upper frame just above the fluid line. And it's, aside from the dots, it's mostly just sort of muddled blackness that is distracting. It's empty space, and as another judge pointed out earlier, that empty space definitely can work for a photo, especially if it's abstract or fine art that you're trying to pull off. Empty space really works for a photo, especially pulling off, feelings of loneliness or solitude or themes like that. Here, it doesn't really help the photo because all the color and everything is around the crown, and it's around the ripples, and then you have that water line, that fluid line, that's giving you a definitive end of frame. If you brought the crop down a little bit, and just right at that fluid line, and gotten rid of those tertiary dots, which I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to get all the dots to give it that oomph, but it doesn't really do anything. Tighter crop, and everything else from the little, it's my favorite. Can't say enough positive things about this photo. Great job.
Is it real or Memorex? And lastly, perspectives. Carol.
Yeah, this was me. If I can find the mute button, I think I'm off mute. I'll let the image come up. I think I'm a little bit. Okay, yeah, so this is me. So this image, give me a second, pull my notes out. So this is, again, the photographer did some things really interesting here. It's a wide format, which goes really well. This is basically a 2-color image, right? It's got the red and the blue. It's another thing I personally love to do myself. I love a limited color palette, right? Although I'm also the first to admit it's not easy to work with. It can be really difficult when you limit yourself the colors. On the one hand, limiting the colors makes things less distracting. On the other hand, it gives you less of a center of interest and things can blend together. To me, the red and blue work well here. There's an old painter's trick where you can achieve balance and harmony in an image in your composition. If you take some of the sky and in the earth, and you put some of the paint from the sky in the ground, and some of the paint from the ground in the sky. So in other words, imagine if you had like a brown landscape with a blue sky. You take some brown, put it in the sky, take some blue, put it in the earth. It gives you a balance, right? And you can do that in photography as well. And the photographer's done that here. If you look carefully at this image, on the red side of the image, there's a little bit of blue. And on the blue side of the image, there's a little bit of red. And that helps make less of a contrast and more of a balance and harmony in the image. It sounds a little cockamamie, but it really is true. Painters have done that for a long time, and this image actually does that. I don't know if this person is a painter or ever painted or not, doesn't matter, but it's got that harmony from that counterpoint of color. The eyes closed here, to me, really contribute to the image because they're not a distraction. To me, it's a striking pose. It's interesting showing the perspective on the face. I think it's a straight on perspective. The neck looks good. The crop looks good on the face, and the sort of the movement of the face in the frame. You could maybe do a little bit tighter cropping. That's neither here nor there. For me, one thing I would adjust. Some of the great painters also talked about color. Actually, color doesn't exist, right? All colors are a reflection of other colors, right? For me, the saturation is very strong in this image. And I think if you're going to work with a limited color palette, you need to start thinking about tinting, toning, and shading, right? So I would actually maybe tint this image a little bit. Just the colors are really saturated, and I think it kind of muddies the image a little bit. And I kind of wish it had a little bit more of a tint to the colors to make it a little less muddy. Now, can you do that in post? Can you do that in camera? Yes. If that maybe it doesn't make sense what I'm saying, I'd be happy to go into that a little bit more. If it's not clear, hopefully it is. I realize I'm being a fine art photographer. A lot of my verbiage is more painterly and less camera. So hopefully that it makes sense what I'm saying, right? I guess I'm trying to say the colors are a little bit too saturated, and I'd like to see a little bit more of a tint to give it a little bit less of a more definition in the image. But I thought this was a really interesting image. Again, it's really a very creative take. I like the perspectives on the face. I like the angle of the face. I like the sort of straight on, but also the sweep. And I like the delineation, the two color palette. And I really thought it was very strong to do that balance and harmony trick where you have some red on the blue and some blue on it, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter, and I got my peanut butter and your chocolate kind of thing. It works. It's a great thing to try to do as a photographer, even if you're not a painter. And that's one of the reasons I picked this image to critique and comment on. So hopefully that made sense, and great job on this image.
Okay, so that concludes this category. So we'll go on to the judges' picks. So we have 4 honorable mentions. First one is Ladies Look at Me, Cheryl Callan. Jim McDaniel for I'm Taking Up a Collection. Roberto White for Spider Hangout. And Van Strickland, Ready for the Evening. Third place is King's Crown by Gene Thomas. Second place, Still by Ronnie Duke. And the judge's first place pick is Yellow Flower and Visitor by Roberto White. Super sharp image. Okay. We will move to the People's Choice in the intermediate division. The bronze goes to Van Strickland, ready for the evening. Silver goes to Be on a Fire Wheel by Michael Knox. And the gold medal, People's Choice, goes to Roberto White, Yellow Flower and Visitor.
Which happens to be gold tinted.
That image impressed everybody. All right, so move on to the advanced division. And as you'll remember, these images are judged by a judge from the PSA. And she was, like I said, she also sent us some crops, which I will have posted so everybody can see suggestions she made. So this time around, we'll just go through them once. The critiques will show. And I need to go to this choice. All right. So 24 images in this division. This one's called Boho Rhapsody. And you can see the judges' comments. If you go online, you'll also be able to see the check boxes, you know, that refer to specific areas they wanted to comment on or identify. Next is Lilliput Lilies, excuse me. Lost. Wings at Sunset. A Break in the Clouds. I am going to make a comment on this one. I think that the judge mistook a texture for spots, I'm thinking. To me, that looks like a texture. So that's the 24 images. And move on to the judges' ranking. So we have 3 honorable mentions and 3 places. Honorable mention number 1, Wings at Sunset, Alan Irby. Jumbo by Gary Hook. A Break in the Clouds by Haitham Samarchi. 3rd place, Lost, Dennis Bosserman. 2nd place, Buffet at Pride of Barbados by Alan Irby. And 1st place, Better Back Off, Buddy by Dennis Bosserman. Did anybody, well, let's see, we'll go through the gold medal, through the People's Choice. The bronze medal goes to Gary Hook for Jumble. Lilliput Lilies by Patty Robertson gets the silver. And the people show their wisdom one more time. Bengals. Okay, did anybody want to make comments or ask about any of the images? We have a few minutes left that we can discuss any images that, let's see if I can get the chat showing here somewhere.
Actually, guys, I got to take off. I have an actual photo job to get to. So,
All right, well, congratulations for that.
I will see you guys on the flip side.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much for helping out.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Great images, everyone. Really enjoyed them.
I see, where was the bison picture taken? Is
It was
Dennis
taken in Yellowstone Park.
Okay.
Yeah,
What time of year? I mean, what month?
it was actually taken in late February or early March. I don't remember which date, but
Cold.
yeah, it was an interesting shot, and the steam was coming out of the buffalo's mouth, and his tail was up like I'm getting in your face pretty quick if you don't get away.
I like the way you were, you positioned yourself so made it look like you were kind of low position and made the bison look, more powerful. And
Well, I cropped it a couple of times. One had the whole buffalo there with his feet and everything, and then I cropped it even tighter for that last image. But
Yeah, I was wondering about the cropping and why you chose it. I thought maybe the feet would have been helpful, but maybe it wasn't.
yeah, it just pulled him in so much closer in your face. That's why I cropped it so tight. Otherwise it gave him some space to be back off from me. So, but anyway, that was my thought.
well, I like your choices there. Any other images that people, I was going to ask Gary about this. Let's see, go back to Gary, did you use textures in this, or is that inherent in the architecture?
No, that's a texture. That was a treatment.
Okay.
And was the image tilted?
Well,
Was the camera tilted a whole bunch?
I'm going to have to say I don't recall. You will have to go down to the central library and look for yourself.
Central library.
I don't recall. I was there looking at the shapes and just I know I was looking up at the time, but where I was turned and how I took this, I really can't tell you. I believe that the bright area is a skylight. Yeah, that's a skylight. That's the brown and gray on the right. That's a walkway. If that tells you anything about your orientation. So it's kind of hard to picture. That was the whole point of the shooting in there. It's a fun place to shoot.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the saturation and all, and textures work well.
Thank
So
you.
Those shots are difficult to do.
So in the intermediate category, I believe there was the, Carol it's the double stars. It looks like, I was guessing it was a sunset reflected in a custom car or van. Not sure. So is the person here?
That was,
Somebody suggested it was a layer, a double exposure. And also we could just ask about the cat in the flowers too.
I think that was a graphic that was overlaid, because I did talk to the author about that one. Let me just see if I can get to. That was an intermediate, you said. It's not there.
Yeah, the intermediate one was called Chasing the Light, and it was with the two, it was two stars on a sky.
Yeah.
Yes, Carol. I appreciate Carol's giving us the perspective that she did on trying to highlight the risk taking and the fine art perspective you always bring, Carol. It's always a refreshing way for us to look at the photographs.
Now, this is the one that really interested me. It's got a lot of really cool effects in it. And I think it's on the way to being a great photograph. There's some lighting issues and maybe some focus issues. But is the author here tonight?
Yes, I'm here.
Jean, tell us about this.
Oh yeah.
Well, I just started getting crazy and looking at, I found old boards in the garage, old bits of hardware in a box, some coins, foreign currency, grandma's meat grinder. And it all doesn't make any sense until you think about what went on behind it. There was a piece of digital art sold for $69 million recently. And it was digital art that only exists on a server farm, but it was bought with cryptocurrency through an auction. And I guess the artist's name was Beeple from South Carolina. So I just took this concept of computers, money, and way back there is a Bitcoin going into the grinder there. And it was just like, art and this cryptocurrency coming together. And it was a light painting, so that kind of added to it.
I was fascinated by this and how you did it. How did you get the coins? I mean, is this a composite or? Well,
No, not really. I had put those coins up on pieces of metal, like very thin wires, and kind of stuck them on there. And those bits of wires, I removed them, but most of them you couldn't see from the angle that the coins were moving. And I just really had to remove one or two of them. And there were nails all over this board holding up the dollar bills.
Well, I was really fascinated by it. I mean, I've been, doing a little study on these non-fungible tokens that are being sold for so much money.
Yes.
If you go online at the certain websites, they've got billions of them. I mean, apparently, we're hearing stories about some of these going for a lot of money. I don't know that they all are, though. I was trying to figure out how can I monetize my photography that way.
That was exactly the concept. This guy had 5 years worth of digital art that he had bundled together and sold it, but it doesn't exist like a painting or, a Picasso or a Monet. It only exists on a server farm.
Yeah, it's on the blockchain. Anyway, fascinating idea and a great concept photo. I kudos to you for thinking of this. That's really cool.
Thank you. It was a fun concept.
Let's see. We'll go through these real quick. If anybody wants to yell about one of them. Boy, we sure had macros this week.
Yeah, unfortunately, Roberto's not online, I don't think, but I wanted to commend him. I hope he didn't get stung.
Yeah. This is Chasing the Light, and I think this was, I'm thinking it was Charles Schwartz's, or whoever the author was. They told me that they had, made this, painted it, but I can't remember exactly what they said, but it was something they created, and I don't know if they created digitally or created something with paint or plastic and then took a picture of it and cut it out.
So is this one, sorry I didn't make it sooner. So is this one controversial yet?
No, it didn't turn out to be. This was yours, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, how'd you make it?
Well, it is a composite. I actually created it with acrylic paint on glass. I was just squeezing the paint out of the tube and after a few tries and wasting a lot of paint and using a lot of paper towels, I got the way I wanted. And then I took basically it was an adhesive spreader and just ran it through the image, through the paint, giving it that streaky effect. And then I took the eyes are actually just took a little paintbrush and wrote those and painted those in. And then I did a selection, and spent a lot of time, spent a lot of time and made them the foreground. And then the background picture is actually the high, if you guys know the High Pecos Bridge over on US 90.
Okay.
Down by the border. I'm actually standing right next to the bridge, and I'm taking images as the sun goes down. What you see in the distance is there's a rest area up on the hill up there, into the middle left. And I'm taking a time exposure as the trucks go rushing by on the highway right next to me.
Oh, okay.
And so I mean, basically, it's at the bottom of a hill. And so the trucks all, they build up their speed because they know they're going to have to run up the other side. So they're all just zooming past as fast as they can go. So that's what this was, was I composited I composited together because I thought it made a great image.
What are the two dark ovals in the center of the star that kind of look like eyes?
Yeah, that was yeah. Like I said, I just took a paintbrush and took a paintbrush, and it's black paint.
Oh, okay.
I
thought they were door handles.
No, and actually, you can if you look at the. Well, I guess I don't have control here to paint, but as you see the star on the right, as it streaked over, it covered over the eyes of the second. You can barely see a little black on the second star, but the paint just covered over the eyes there when I ran the spreader through it. Right there, okay. Yes, exactly. And so I just painted them in before I did the smear, and and then spent a lot of time. And they look a little. The part of the depth there that you're getting, of course, is if you look around the edges, particularly on the undersides, you can kind of see this kind of 3D effect there. That's because I'm painting on glass.
Okay. And where did you get this idea? And is it the first time you've done it? Is this the only image?
Well, yeah, this is the first time. This is actually the second time I did it. I was actually I'm actually taking a digital color class over at ACC, and I'm the stars were, I did the stars. I was trying to get the emotion of yellow,
Got
and
it.
you
It
know,
was
and
totally
and
experimental.
well, yeah, exactly. So, and they liked it, but I was like, well, what else can I do with this? Because it was pretty plain by itself. It was shot on white as a background, right? And so, I was kind of like, well, okay, what can I do to make this more interesting? And so I went looking through my images to find something that looked streaky, that would go with this. And this was one of my choices. I mean, there were some others that I could have used. I mean, I have some blurry pictures of downtown Austin that I considered and rejected, but might have turned out interesting as well. But again, this was pushing the edge, and I kind of wanted to see what you guys would say, how I could improve it. I didn't I haven't edited a lot, after I selected the stars and composited them together. I didn't do too much. I think I ran it through I ran it through a denoise program, to kind of, because the dark of the background was a little noisy. So I think I used, who's our favorite denoise program? Topaz. I used the Topaz denoise on it, I think. I kind of want to see what people thought, how could I make this better?
One thing I can say, because I judge it already, so I don't want to, dominate here. But one thing I will say is a lot of people are doing composites. And one of the hardest things to do with a composite is to get the scale right between the two images, right? Like, I think that's one of the things that happened with the cat and the flowers, right? Because the scale was a little odd, and that made it difficult because the face and the flower were not quite the same size. With this image, the scale really works for me because you have these big, giant stars that are sort of moving, and then the motion is echoed in the image behind it. So there's elements, the scale works really well, and then there's elements of the motion that are conveyed in both of the images. So I think if you're doing composites, it's really important the scale becomes much more critical than even in a still photo. And that can be very difficult when you start working in a composite to realize that, because you may have two images that look great independently. When you put them together, you have a big thing and a little thing, and they just don't match up. And then also the other thing that happens when you start to composite is the exposure gets a little weird, right? You can really get too dark or too light because you're squashing everything together and it's twice as much information. And you really maintain that here. In my critique, I commented on the gradient in the sky, and that also really works with the sense of motion. So I think one thing is you've got an emotion, like motion, the movement moving through all of the composite elements. And that's why this image is really strong to me. I hope that helps and makes sense.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I was doing, kind of what I was thinking. But the thing I didn't, the thing I thought I was going to get critiqued for, I figured people were gonna not like. I mean, I had kind of the yellow lines here, sort of lining up with the stars, but not really. And then the red line's not at all. And I thought somebody was going to come back and say, well, but they didn't line up. And I was like, I don't care.
If I were saying anything that I would like different, I would like to see the eyes on the left star.
Oh, okay.
It was just a little higher or a little lower so that you could see its eyes too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I could, that was kind of the how should we put this? This was the kind of the experimental bit was okay, we're just going to run it through there and we'll see what happens, So yeah, the eyes kind of got covered over on the second star. And you're not the first person to comment on that. But you know, it is what it is. Ooh, Xanadu. Okay. I had somebody else call it Starman.
And before we get too far into this, it is coming up on, or it is 9 o'clock. So, but I wanted to make sure that we noted that our newer members have won tonight, and I wanted to give them kudos, Jerry and Sabrina, and if they had anything to add or comment on their winning photos.
Thanks for commenting on my photo. And I've been doing color, but I've been getting into black and white lately. I really like black and white.
Where was that?
Oh, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, what was the name of your picture?
Bridge.
Oh, yeah, that was the last one in the
Yeah.
basic group.
All the texture, all the wood texture of the bridge, black and white.
That's what I really like.
Where is that bridge, Jerry?
It's you know where Coney's baseball fields are?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, in the railroad tracks. The bridge is on the railroad tracks on not Waters Park Road. It's
oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And Sabrina, the picture of the two girls. Is Sabrina here?
She had two winners this month, didn't she? The two girls and something else.
Yes, she did.
What was the other one? Let's see. That was just delightful. I love the expressions. I love the treatment. It's really beautiful.
It almost looks like a black and white image that's hand painted.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
The light is beautifully soft.
Yeah.
Really, the light is very strong in this image. The quality of the light is really beautiful.
Yeah. Okay.
Before we finish, has someone maybe Mark, you'd like to describe next month's competition, the Iconic Texas?
Yes, Iconic Texas. Well, it's anything that, is either that's easily identifiable as Texas or Texan. It could be a place, it could be something that refers to Texas history, or, things that are Texas culture. I mean, a cowboy hat or longhorn cattle or whatever, that, has a relationship, a strong relationship with the state of Texas. And, the limitations after that are pretty minimal. Just, it's a big topic that you can run any direction you want with.
Are the judges going to be required to live in Texas or be in Texas? A Texan?
You ask a good question. We have to decide if we want to use internal judges or not. I haven't committed to PSA next month, although they know we've got one coming. So I'm thinking, unless somebody's got a judge they really want to do this, we'll let PSA do it again. See how that goes. But
do you have the opportunity to ask for the judge to be from Texas, either in Texas or from Texas?
I could certainly ask. I don't know if they have any or not, but I can certainly ask.
Well, actually, there's a point to be made that if they're not, they might get a better, more disassociated perspective on Iconic Texas. What says Texas to them?
That's true.
Yeah, like you've had Tex-Mex food up in New York and it's so authentic.
It's okay. Those people
No, it's
don't know
not.
spicy. Those people don't know spicy.
Yeah, they don't. And then there's, of course, the Texas barbecue that you get someplace else that's covered in sauce.
Or a paste paste jar, paste picante sauce. Made in New York City. And the deadline date is, are you sticking with all the classes due early?
Yes. Ed, what do you know what we have for that? Or let me look at
Let me look, it's on the homepage. The deadline is Tuesday, April 20th.
Get started now.
okay. Yeah.
Go down to the
Comes
Capitol.
fast.
I believe the submissions start tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it looks like Ed is ready with one Texas icon already.
Yeah, the blue bonnets, Ed.
You bet.
Is that your picture? No. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's more than 2 years old.
Okay. Yeah, that's the other thing to remind everybody. It's got to be less than 2 years old.
Yeah, I know. I was going through my old blue bonnets, and there are.
I got a lot of those.
I got a lot
Yeah.
old blue bonnets.
you got a weak blue bonnet.
Well,
Here.
there's some that are like that will be, that are just now over 2 years old, and so there will be all of this the 2 years ago will be out of date by the time we hit the iconic hit the due date.
Yeah.
Mark, I was going to, and everybody too. I have a link in the email to the New Braunfels Photographic Society, and they are a PSA club. And they had I listened to some of their March meeting. It's very interesting, and maybe they would. And they're doing inter-club competition as well. So they have some. It's a small group, but they seem to have a lot of interest in their photography. It was very interesting to listen to their meeting. I recommend you skip through and listen to their meeting just to get a perspective on how great our club is too.
I'm glad you mentioned Interclub. The Interclub competition year starts with October submissions. So we've got a little lead time, but I think it's time for us to start organizing. And anybody that would like to help help organize the Interclub competition or Interclub submissions for our club, help would be greatly appreciated. Gary has already volunteered, and we have to decide, what various groups we want to enter into, nature, photojournalism, travel, etc. And then, we need 6 images for each group. So we'll start getting some information out about that, and we won't have a 2-year moratorium or time limit on your images, because the interclubs I don't think have a time limit, so we can do what we want there. In any case, we'll get started on that fairly soon.
Mark, can you expand on what you just said? Is this our club competing against another club?
Yeah, we'll be competing against other PSA.
So is it a head competition, as it were?
No, it's not head to head. They put you into a group, and since we're one of the new groups, we'll go into a group that's mostly new clubs, and then I can't remember exactly if they move you up over time if you perform well, but you will. I think they try to get the better clubs competing against each other, but I think it'll probably be 5 or 6 clubs. It might be more. I can't remember exactly, but I'll get, that's all on the PSA website, but I'll get that all information for everybody to look at.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
It certainly could be. And, it'll tell us if we've got what it takes to, put our stuff out there in the world. But I think it's, it'd be like a team thing for us, where we all be, pushing each other to do better. And it could be very entertaining and rewarding. All right. Anything else? Well, if not,
We-
then
I'm sorry, Mark,
No, go
is
ahead.
there a May third Thursday program, or can we
Yes.
get some new ideas?
no, we have an April. We do not have a May yet.
Yes, April is the
Honeymoon.
Hahnemühle paper. That should be very interesting. There should be some prizes with that too.
Yeah,
But May, June, July, we
have not had anything come up for that yet. And so if anybody has any ideas, let us know. Let leadership know. I think it's time for us to have another leadership meeting too.
Yeah, very true.
Okay.
Great meeting.
All right. Thank
Good
you all so
photos.
much. Judges, always love your effort.
Thanks, guys. I'll see what everybody said later when it gets posted. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Doing it.